to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, ChiroThin, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Local Gold, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Accident Records, Chiro Tax Pro, Full Script, your online dispensary, Angela Pearson, author of I'm Not Contagious, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 181 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your co-host, Luke Millette, and here is your host, Jim Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Stephanie Rimka. And if you want to know more about how we're going to turn the tides of the chiropractic profession for the greater good of all, stay tuned. This is episode 181. We have Dr. Stephanie Rimka coming in from Hotlanta. And we are Luke over here and Jim over here. And we are coming in from Grand Junction, which is the Grand Valley on the western slope of Colorado. And we're here producing Chiro Hustle. And this is really going to be a fun episode because we are going to be opening some eyes, ears, and hearts to your message. And this is our first actual opportunity to get in touch with each other face-to-face or digitally face-to-face and do an interview with you. And I think you're going to be able to connect with a lot of our audience and to be able to share your story with more people and also give people an idea of maybe some things that they can do to, you know, stand up for the philosophy and their art as a chiropractor. So let's just jump right into this one and tell people a little bit about yourself and what really influenced you to become a chiropractor.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited. I've been listening and you've had some great shows of late. Some of my friends and people I've even adjusted. I'm like, wow, look at that. Look at that one. You know, I knew him when he was a student kind of a thing. I'm showing my age because I've been out 20 years. So if I sound like a mother, I am. So it's okay. Why I became a chiropractor is it's kind of a long story, short story. I have to, how do I circle this in? I do kind of have that classic sports injury story that a lot of us have, but I was so dense and kind of dumb that, and had an ego that it took many kind of beatings down from spirit until I finally got it. So at 16, so I was just raised in a regular family in Detroit and no health nuts or anything like that. My mom just worked and we didn't have a lot of money and, dad wasn't there kind of thing. And I played a lot of sports and I was a good student. So I was a student athlete, very aggressive and very competitive, kind of like a lot of chiropractors I know. And I hurt my back after a soccer game in high school. I was 16. And up in Michigan, we play in the snow. And it was one of those really crazy cold things in spring where it snowed. And we were just in shorts and the t-shirt. And our coaches were very into, you will not look like a Barbie doll out there. So there'll be no kind of thermals underneath that. We were like, how tough can I be? And it was kind of stupid. So so I was probably tightening up and spasming up a little bit. And at the end of the game, I was a little too lazy. I always, instead of walking to the gate, I would just run up to the 6-foot fence and flip myself over. And at the top, my back seized up and spasmed, and I just fell and collapsed onto the ground, which was kind of hard and frozen at that point. I was like, whatever, I'm fine. It hurt, but whatever. I was a Papa Tylenol kind of kid, like, whatever. Suck it up, just numb it out and move on and let's keep going. Well, for a few days, though, it was really bad. And I had a really hard time playing. I couldn't practice. And I'm like, this is not okay. And so I told my mom, and I never wanted to go to a doctor. I would lie about things, which took me to the doctor. And they gave me a shot with like B vitamins, I remember, and muscle relaxants. And they gave me some pills. And I went home, we took the pain pills. And I slept for something like 28 hours straight. So I missed school and my soccer practice or a game the next day. It was horrifying to me what just happened. So I felt horrible. I was freaked out. I'm like, well, I can never do that again. So I'm like, I'm not taking those things. but I was in excruciating pain. So I just kept downing Tylenol. I would take a lot. I would take 10, 12 a day. Like it was nothing, like candy. So I was with my friend in class, my best friend, Naomi, and I mentioned, oh my God, and she saw me hurting. I'm like, I need help. And I was a tough guy. So that was hard for me to say, I hurt. And she goes, why don't you go see my brother, Keith? And I was like, why would I do that? What about Keith? And I know her whole family, big Lebanese family. She's the youngest of 7. I'm like, what? She's like, he's a chiropractor. I'm like, what's that? Right? She goes, oh, he'll just fix your back. So they deal with the back, you get adjusted. It's all, whatever she said. I'm like, okay, because it's Naomi and I've known her my whole life and she's my best friend. And I know Keith. So I told my mom and my mom took me. And interesting story. Just, I just want to tell people, like, when I thought about the story recently, I was telling somebody, everything happens for a reason. My mom had gotten remarried. My father's actually been in prison my whole life. So my mother really struggled and had to get government assistance and work 3 jobs and really just 4 kids. It was tough, right? In Detroit, trying to make it, hustle and grind. And she had just married a Detroit detective maybe 6 months before this. So she'd gotten remarried. So we had wicked good health insurance for the first time in our lives instead of Medicaid, instead of the free welfare insurance where you're lucky, you went to emergency room all the time is what I had to do. I was thinking about that. Like if my mom, I don't know if I would have become a chiropractor hadn't she not married that Detroit cop. And I had this brilliant insurance that she was like, absolutely. I went and she had been adjusted herself. She's like, oh, remember when I hurt my back when I fell a few years ago on the ice? I went to a chiropractor. I was like, oh, of course she wasn't taught enough to like continue going. And she wasn't taught to take me to go at the time. It's all happens for a reason. So I went and I started going into Keith and Keith Khalil up in Detroit, who I can still consider to be the best East Side chiropractor. No disrespect to the Lupo family, but Keith is my boy, Dr. Khalil. And he still adjusts me when I go home. I was your classical teenager, right? He lit me on fire, right? It was like, wow, and it was like when you're a teen and the way the life force DNA goes, boom, I was like, yeah. So I would sketch. So it was like, I healed like this. He was constantly telling me to stop taking the Tylenol. And I'm like, whatever, Keith. He's like, it's bad for your liver. I'm like, whatever. Okay. And I would go when I was in pain. And I would stop going when I wasn't in pain. I would go when I would get injured, and I would stop going when I wouldn't get injured. I listened for a little bit in the beginning, but I was a horrible patient. I was classic pain in and out. And I got hurt again because I was just overly doing things. I dislocated a hip, and he threw it in. And on the day of prom, I went to Naomi's house screaming. I said, Keith, I need you to throw it in. He goes, you need to go to the hospital. So I need you to throw it in because I'm going to my prom. Like, that's the kind of stupid way I was with my body, with no respect as a teenager. So he always was telling the story and telling the story and telling the story. And I'm like, learning as much as I can. But the messages about taking drugs were fun. I didn't really get it. So I go off to college, and I ended up breaking my back in a soccer game. And so I broke L5, herniated L5, S1. My leg, and I broke some ribs in this game, had a concussion and a bunch of other stuff. And it was months later, I was out running, my legs I was paralyzed. There was no feeling, there was no motor movement. I was screaming, terrified, dragging myself home, barely able after 2 miles. Orthopedic surgeons told me, you're done playing sports. If, I was in traction for a long time, you are not playing sports again. You may never run again. If we don't get the swelling down, this is a big problem. The whole idea of like, you may never walk again or run again. At 19, the level of FU was still so strong in my system. I didn't really understand innate intelligence. I didn't really understand universal intelligence. I just knew enough. I'm not having that be true. And I looked this whole situation and the drugs, I'm like, I'm not doing it. Looked at my mom and said, get me out of here and you take me to Keith. And I was kind of dragged into Keith's, and I was like crying, like, please just take me to Keith, right? So through that moment, and Keith throwing up the x-ray, he's like, Stephanie, it's broke. What are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, can you listen to me now? I said, I'm going to listen to you now. I'm going to do whatever you tell me to finally do. I'm sorry. And it was I'm not invincible moment. So he helped recover. So even though I had like this miracle, I can run again. I played sports again. I ended up playing hockey and intramural basketball and all other kinds of stuff back in college. I still didn't really get it. I still was like, I'm going to medical school. And I was pre-med. I had a triple major. I was a biology, Spanish double major with a pre-med concentration and a minor in psychology. So at my school, we didn't do majors. We had to do like a whole bunch of things. So I had to make my own private degree. And these docs, I was kind of being groomed by two of my professors. One was going, you should go into child psychiatry. And here's why. Because I'm a psychologist, and I took he's like, all these kids are coming in, they're crack babies. They're addicted. They're being born addicts. They're going to need psychiatric support for the rest of their lives, along with psychology. There's very few women in this field. You're going to be a multimillionaire in a few years. You could be a genius at this. I was like, okay. I had another bio professor, and he played sports, and we lifted weights in the gym together. And he was like, Stephanie, you need to be an orthopedic surgeon. I was like, okay, why is that? He goes, because there's very few, you're big enough, you're strong enough, you're powerful enough. You understand the mechanics of the sports and I said, okay. And he goes, and there's very few women that would do this, and you would make millions of dollars, name your price. So I had these two teachers that I respected and like were championing me and cheering me. They knew I was a poor kid on scholarship, and there weren't a lot of those kids there. And it was kind of a secret. Nobody ever, they were rooting for me and they're trying to help me. They know I had no dad at home to do it. Well, I got sick in college. My thyroid crashed. I'd become a vegetarian, and I actually got myself really sick. That's probably why I broke my back. But I kept going to the physicians on campus, whatever, and they kept missing everything. I gained like 50, 60 pounds. I was struggling cognitively. I'm suddenly can't do math. I'm like, what's 5 times 5? And what's wrong with me? And I'm sleeping all the time. And I'm gaining weight. And it was about a year of going in constantly and them saying, well, it must be mono, even though you don't test positive. And about a year into it, a friend of mine says, have they tested your thyroid? I said, no. What? Why would they do that? She's like, oh my God, you sound like me with a thyroid disorder. You haven't tested it. Turns out that's what I had. I got on some Synthroid. Things were changing. And I think there was a number of other things with some of my friends going through some psychiatric stuff, some friends that were suicidal up there. And I saw that there was no real support. And it was my first time that I was kind of disgruntled with medicine. I was like, why did I keep going? And they didn't do anything. And why did the surgeon say this? And that was stupid. Like I saw how it was limiting me. So I suddenly had like a crisis of, wait a minute, why do I want to be a physician? Like maybe this is the wrong choice for me. Like maybe I'm only doing this for my ego because I'm trying to bring respect and money to my family. That was really, you asked me at 3, I wanted to be a doctor, done and done. But the golden ring of the, godlike white lab coat physician was obviously the thing. And I started to realize I didn't like what they were telling me. I didn't like the way I was treated in the system. I didn't like a lot of things I was seeing. And for some reason, I think I should take time off. I think I need to rethink this and decide what I want to do before I commit to like 8 years, or longer in a surgical rotation. So in that year off, I started working as a caseworker for schizophrenics, and my back hurt again. So I went to Keith again. So I moved back to Detroit, and my back hurt, and I'm working with schizophrenics. I'm disgusted with what I'm seeing in the psychiatric hospital. I mean, I enraged at times and blown away at how people were drugged up and thrown away with no recourse. I'm like, this is it? And you read the case studies, and I'd be bawling hearing about these women being raped and all this. I'm like, what is going on here? This is your solution? It was horrific to me. So I was very confused and very disillusioned as to what I was supposed to do. So I go into Keith's office one day. I know it's a long story, but Keith changed my life in I love Keith. So anyway, he changed my life in a million ways. But this day, this guy saw 500 people a week. Okay. He's still practicing. So he's decent volume. I'm in there and I go, Keith, here's the thing. Can I ask you a question though? And he goes, what? I go, so like when I get adjusted, all my pain goes away. I go, but that's not the thing. This can't be the thing. I go, when I'm coming to you regularly, I'm just so much happier. I'm calmer. I'm more positive. Everything in the world just looks so different to me. Like, what? It can't be the pain that's changing my whole outlook and optimism on life. Like, what the hell is going on? And he just had this look, and he had a whiteboard at every room. And he starts with the pen, and he's this, and innate intelligence. He starts talking about the brain and afferent, and efferent, the sensory sensations coming in and what your brain does with it, and the subluxation and the light, and then the motor output. And he's explaining all this, and he brings innate intelligence and da-da-da-da. And his wife comes in, I remember, because she was like office managing like 5 or 6 staff. And she's like, Keith, you're getting backed up. And he's like, they can wait. This is too important. It was like, everybody's like, oh shit. I'm like, okay. And he just kept going, and I'm looking at him, and I told him about the schizophrenics, the hospital, how frustrated, like what, and he goes, I said, wait a minute. And it was like, big idea. I said, so the schizophrenics need to get adjusted? He goes, yeah. I go, oh shit, I need to be a chiropractor. And he goes, yeah. And I go, well, what do I do? He goes, Atlanta. I moved 6 months later. I was like, okay, gone, done. So it was this idea that I could shift emotional health, psychological health in the people. I was seeing it in all these people in the group homes that I was trying to get from the hospital to group homes. I'm like, they're not getting adjusted. They're all jacked up. Their brains can't, of course they can't understand, because there's no good communication anywhere. Now, my naivete, I thought that would be enough to stop someone from being schizophrenic. Now, it's not as simple as that, but that is why I went to school, to work primarily with mental illness, drug addiction, alcoholism, to try and go into the prison system and pull people out or stop them from ever going there, because I was a child that was left alone from a father that went to prison. That's why I became a chiropractor. So that's how I approached my entire education. So it was a long story, but it's a weird story. And it would make sense that I was like a sports chiropractor, because that's what I was super into. And that's my chiropractor, is that kind of guy. And I just said, I got to trust my heart that it's emotions and psychology and consciousness that I'm ultimately fascinated by, and how the brain is involved with that. So I knew right away I was a doctor of the brain. I didn't see chiropractic as about back or neck pain at all anymore. I'm like, thank you, done. Decision is made, right? And it's odd that I do kind of orthopedic surgery and child psychiatry with my hands and and I'm like, oh my God, I do exactly what these guys said I should be doing in a different way.
It's a fascinating.
I know, it's a weird one, right? It's got
Not at all. It's not weird. It's unless you consider yourself weird.
No. Just, a little thick-headed. I could have figured it out at 16, but I had to figure it out at 22.
So let me just, for clarity, what's Keith's name? You mentioned
Khalil. Khalil. Khalil.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sure that a lot of people are going to be like, who is this Dr. Keith guy?
He's badass. He's sent at least 100 students to life. I mean, he grows chiropractors out of his office. He just generates them. That man you should get him.
That's what I'm saying. We're going to have to interview Keith. That was one of my, knocking on your door. Can you tell me this guy's name?
Yeah. Get Keith. He's been hiding in practice for a long, he's just telling the story. And lately I interviewed him. I'm like, Keith, you got to get on film. He's like, okay, how do I do it? He's like 60 now. They get a little nervous about technology. I'm like, you can do it. You can do it. Yeah. He's awesome.
So before we started the interview, we were kind of pre-chatting a bit, and you were alluding that you do things a little differently than most traditional chiropractors adjust.
Yeah. Well, I think that, I do a lot of other things too. I mean, the reality is when you specialize in brain-based disorders, so adjusting, I started off adjusting, right? But I was studying intensely in school, a lot of diet, nutrition. I wanted to know what the adjustment was doing to neurotransmitters, right? Like when I read Molecules of Emotion by Candace Pert, my mind was blown. When I read Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton when I was in school. So I was reading these books 20 some years ago and saying, wait a minute. And so I was seeing the mind-body connection way back then when I was still a student, and I was trying to figure out how to access that, how to get into, I didn't know neuroscience was even a word, I don't think, but I was concerned with, if you're a drug addict or schizophrenic or bipolar or suicidal depression, like I understood what those were doing. I understood I better know what to do about neurotransmitters and hormones that are at play and driving this, and how function and structure relate to each other and how they both dictate each other. It's both ways that it's going, and what could I do for that? So I kind of attacked my education trying to learn as much about everything as I possibly could. While I was in school, my nephew was diagnosed with autism. And that was just like, what moment? And my sister, who's my oldest sister, I'm the youngest, and she called, but trusts me with that. And it was like, what do I do? And I'm like, I need help. And she was at a place actually in her marriage at that time that, bless her husband, he didn't believe in chiropractic. He thought I was a lunatic, that she even hid taking her kids to get adjusted. So she got adjusted and she took the kids, but it was a secret. So it was I had a lot of influence on her, but she also had what she had to deal with, right, at the same time. And I wanted them to not vaccinate. They ended up delaying, and he still, autism. So she called and said, what do I do? Well, that's my sister. So I researched, and I became a lunatic. I became obsessed with what I can do in fifth quarter, whatever it was. Who were the experts? Who was out there? What did we need to do? And that led me into the gut like crazy, right? Which the gut barrier, then the blood-brain barrier, and everything in between. And the Dan doctors defeat autism now, and all the chiropractors that are doing that. So this was very personal to me. Everything that the mental health, this is personal. This is in my family, and then the autism. So that's what kind of changed gears. So I eventually was learning every technique that could do that, plus all the nutrition stuff, endocrinology like crazy. I love that. So I was adjusting, but also working with all these physicians who are holistic and alternative, who trained me as they were working on and recovering my nephew. And once we discovered neurofeedback and how we went into the brain directly, so I adjusted my nephew, right? I adjusted everybody in my family. But once we realized that, well, I'm affecting the brain through all of this, but why not go right into the brain with neurofeedback? So we did that for him for a long time, and it was the most explosive results we'd had. And at that point, I said, my sister, she just said something to me basically, and my whole changed again. I said, well, I have to learn how to do that. I need to go deeper. I need to go deeper into the neurology. So I'm board certified in neurofeedback therapy. I do a lot of electromagnetic therapies, I use a lot of electricity and magnetism and light applications in addition to adjusting. So there's a lot of different ways I'm trying to bring nutrition and open up life force in a person. So I don't know if that was what you were asking for, but.
Well, in addition to being a chiropractor, you're also a coach and a retreat leader and a speaker. Like, how many other hats do you also have?
I'm 47, man. So, I'm almost 50, right? You end up doing things. So like I said, I was doing psychotherapy before. And then when I was in school, I got really into I just think personal development, one of the best lessons I learned from the chiropractor, like influences I had. So when I was in school, it was the guys I hung out with and the courses that I took with them and mission trips that I went on with, Arnaud Brunier, Lou Corletto, Sue Brown, John D'Onofrio, DeMartini. I think it's some of the big ones Jen Tempo and Kent, right? So personal development and growth was like super huge on campus. Tony Robbins came into Life University, did special workshops just for us at Life, just for chiropractors. Tony Robbins did. Landmark Forum, I did all of those things. I did a lot of growth courses, right, to be working on myself, to growing myself as a human being. And I loved that so much, again, because I'm into the psychological, emotional health and how the adjustment as a chiropractor is going to affect that. Because we all know, even somebody who doesn't know anything about that, they know adjusting. I don't care if you're adjusting 500 people a day. You're changing their emotional and psychological status, even if you don't understand why exactly. You're like, they are better. They're making better decisions. They have more dopamine. These things are real. So I was really into that. So I got trained in an international organization. I became a leader of these group courses. So I was teaching courses, in my 20s. Had a lot of chiropractors because we were all kind of involved in that. So that was really cool. But I do run retreats and I teach online courses it's a way I had to figure out to say at my point, my son is 14. And a few years ago, we actually had mold in our house and I got really sick and he got really sick. And it was a tough time physically, emotionally, psychologically, and financially. I was like, I got to really figure out how to stop trading my hours for dollars as much. Because if I'm not in the office, I'm not making that much money. There's still stuff going on. I leveraged more. I had a lot of other doctors and other things working, for me, but it wasn't quite the same. But if you're down and out at home, because of something, then how do I make sure we're good? So I started leveraging how to multiply myself. And a way people do that, right? Video, books is the traditional. You guys make a movie, right? Make a documentary, right? You've multiplied yourself. So instead of saying it once, you hope 1 million people end up seeing that story, right? So I started teaching courses recently, and I have an e-learning center, and I teach, like consumer client patients, people might say. And I also started teaching chiropractors and small business owners, some mindset, visualization, things like that other doctors have taught me. So yeah, I do. I'm an Aquarian. I don't know if you guys know what that means at all, but we have to hop around, man. We like to, I get a little bored I could never do the same, I could never have one office and probably be there 30 years. So I've had 4 locations and I move around. I just like to get it going, build it up, have a new idea, do something else, build it up, have a new idea.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, ChiroThin, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Local Gold, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Accident Records, Chiro Tax Pro, Full Script, your online dispensary, Angela Pearson, author of I'm Not Contagious, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle. So that leads me into being able to, interject with you a little bit too. And it's not just an adjustment. Because when you're saying when you were 16, when you got that adjustment, it lit you up and you knew something was released and you're
crazy. Yeah.
I don't want Tylenol anymore.
Yeah.
I just think that whatever just happened to me was holy, yeah. That was something just blew the roof off of the top. And I would
schedule it. I always got adjusted before every game and after. So I made sure then, I couldn't do it every practice, but before every game, I made sure he adjusted me. It was always done. So I was as clear and ready to go. That whole your power's turned on thing, he would say all those classic Sid statements. I'm like, yeah. I mean, it was like a rocket. It just, because the life force of a 16, 17, 18 was pretty damn high to begin with. So you just move things out of the way and I'm ready, right? So it made my physical prowess and my mental capacity. I was so clear. I didn't understand fully. I just understood it from the nervous system. So let me say, I understood the brain, this. He did the classic garden hose, the light, see the thing, the weight of the dime on the back of the, he did the classic stuff, right? Education, old school health talks. I'm like, yeah, awesome. Well, as I got into it, and I'm into frequency medicine, electromagnetic understanding, and understanding that everything is about light, and electrons are just moving on photons of light, and I read a lot of sacred texts, and I do a lot of chanting, and I'm super woo-woo spiritual. I teach whole lectures on a topic called neurospirituality. I believe deeply your spirituality is governed by your neurology, so I need to create stable, orderly neurology in human beings so they can have a deeply connected spiritual experience. So for me, chiropractic is about bringing more light of who you really are. It's all about light. I think we're just light beings. Everything is slowed down. You're not getting it. And I know that might sound a little weird, but actually the science, the physics completely proves it. And actually, no coincidence, my first mission trip in school, I went with Lou Corletto, Arnaud Bernier. Was Sue Brown on that one? I don't remember. I think she was. We went to Brazil, and this where we stayed was Fortaleza. And the big thing everybody talked about, it means Fortress of Light. And I was seventh quarter, which means I literally had just gone into student clinic. So I'd only adjusted, so many people. I was the only student with 21 doctors. So it was 21 of us total. So 20 actual graduated practicing people and me. They kind of snuck me in and allowed me in as an exception. So I was really inexperienced, really overwhelmed. But to be in that, you can actually just see and feel obscene amounts of light flowing through you and the people as you're doing it. It's crazy. I'll tell you, in my 10 days, I think I was, that first trip I ever did, I don't speak any Portuguese. I could completely understand everything. By the fourth day, I think, I no longer need a translator. I understand word for word. It's like the Portuguese just turned into English right now. That is not, but that's the realm and the power of chiropractic to me. It is really connecting this physical matter to who we really are, which is pure consciousness frequency, which is the frequency of everything that has ever existed, ever will be, and will never cease to exist. It's what the Gnostics would call the divine spark. It is the God source. We call it innate intelligence, right? So that is released when I remove an interference to that having a harmonious connection with the human body. However I choose to do it, in whatever technique, doesn't matter, right? So it goes beyond neuroscience and neurotransmitters and blah, 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 in afferent. I mean, that's all lovely, and we need to know all those details, and I know most of that. But to me, it's a deeper spiritual conversation, and it's about reminding people, by adjusting somebody, I help them, I'm reminding them that they're divine, that they're consciousness, that they're a soul having a physical experience. That's what I was knowing, but I didn't understand it. But eventually I did. I was like, oh, got it.
Well, so far what I'm picking up on is you have a multitude of ability to help people, and the adjustment's a part of that, which is, making sure that people's subluxations are clear.
Yeah.
But one of the things that really gets me going with you is in your bio, you mentioned something of the social crisis. And I think that something that we're having right now, very timely, is people are more than ever looking for solutions for the challenges that they're dealing with, not just your colleagues ringing you and texting you and looking for their own guidance. But when it comes to like this, making big decisions for ourselves right now, people are being bombarded with these things that you're mentioning earlier. If they didn't have bipolar, they sure as hell do now. If they didn't have some type of a mental hiccup, they're definitely hiccuping the hell all over the place. And, when we're talking about people having some type of a disconnect with the brain and body, it's never been greater than right now with the social experiment that we're living. So let's just retrace a little bit. 20 years as a practitioner, student athlete, going through the journey of understanding chiropractic, but not really getting it. And then you finally got it, and then you finally became it, and now you're finally giving it. So adding that whole journey, the continuum, the circle, and this hero's journey that you're talking about, when you're going and taking deep dives because the shit's personal. Like, it's my nephew, it's my dad, it's me, it's these people, it's my colleagues. Like, this shit's personal for you. Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about the personal aspect of if everybody is getting chiropractic. Would we be led down where we are right now?
No.
Where people are so submissive to thinking that's an outside in perspective that's going to make our body stronger?
God, that's so good, Jim. So,
I'm like a defense attorney, okay?
So, the question is, what would the world look like if everybody was getting adjusted? Let's say that I don't know what
Will we be this fragile and easy to attack?
No. So we're going to be okay. All right. Let's get. So one, I'm begging. I don't know if I would need to beg. I don't know what it is at this point, but doctors of chiropractic have got to really look at themselves deeply right now. This is a line in the sand moment for you personally and professionally. And I'm a person, I haven't been loud in chiropractic. I'm not all over on stages. I go to some DE every now and then. I do, you know what I mean? I'm going to see a bunch of chiropractors this weekend at a conference in Asheville. And I was with a bunch in Nashville, last weekend doing little things that we're able to do. But most of these people watching me are like, who the hell is she, right? I'm not all over the chiropractic field. But there comes a point, we cannot be quiet. I cannot be quiet about a lot of what I see going on. For years, I've been terrified to talk about vaccines. I don't want to get killed. That's what it comes down to. I have a son. I'm like, I can't afford to be killed. I can't afford to be suicided. So I'm going to avoid that one. Like, I don't, but how much of us I was being submissive. I'm being muzzled. I'm being choked off. And I'm looking I'm at a point in my life where what we're seeing now, it's a phrase I say, it's kind of crass, but it's time to take your balls out of your purse, put them on the table and hit it. Because everybody being quiet and submissive and consenting is your quiet consenting is giving permission to what you see going on. And if we don't start, if the holistic chiropractor, the vitalistic person, you're a holistic person, you are vitalism, right? End of story. If we aren't the ones that are able to rise up and be leaders for our practice members, patients, clients, we're going to call them, then who the hell is going to lead them? Who the hell is going to tell them that's bullshit? They're looking for somebody to give them permission to stand up and fight. And that's, I'm seeing chiropractors kind of bowing down in panic, and I get it. I don't know what it would have been like. I have to ask myself, what would I have done back in the day when they were literally arresting and putting the people in jail, the chiropractors in jail?
They might.
Right? What?
They might do that again.
I know, right? So here's where you're at. You're like, wait a minute. This is actually happening. So I have to look at, what are my values? Where's my integrity? What's my character? Who am I? And what legacy am I trying to leave for my son? And I'm clear. You try to come into my house and make me do something to me or my son against my will, I am willing to die and take a few of you down out with me. So, and that would be the same for a number of reasons. I'm going to tell you too, you're not putting a mask on me. So I'm at a place now, the consenting, you say, well, it's just to go to the grocery store. I do not consent. I'm not doing it, because every little inch I give to show you can exert power and control over me, that you can control me, is me showing the world that I'm resigning. I'm acquiescing. And it comes from the way I behave, the way I look, the words I speak to my patients, to my friends, colleagues, and what they see me doing. I'm trying to be in integrity no matter what. I don't spout off a bunch of get adjusted and I never get adjusted. I don't say make healthy choices and I'm eating, candy every day, right? I'm trying to be in integrity. End of story. So I've had to do a hard look at myself to go, all right, Rimka, how far are you willing to take this? How much do you really believe in holism? How much are you really going to go to bat for? You will not take away my medical sovereignty. You will not take away my medical freedom. End of story, right? So I have to kind of see, how far are you willing to go? What are you really willing to put up to lose to say this story to protect you and your son? What is it? Some people, they don't know they're being lied to. They think the CDC and the AMA and the WHO are good guys. Well, I'm sorry, but chiropractors have known that they're full of shit for a very long. If you're a chiropractor, I mean, it's because you kind of know that, right? You're like, oh man, they lied to you. You know that, right? We have a cartel, a mafia called pharmaceuticals that are running and owning the government, and we know it. And now, what I love, Jim and Luke, what I think is amazing, you're watching a revolution within Western physicians. You're watching them get censored. You're watching them get attacked. And they're suddenly seeing it like, wait a minute. So we're about to have the biggest group of allies on our side that we need to say, so here's the thing, doc, you actually believe in helping people from a real root cause and not all this bullshit. They're like, oh my God, I had no idea. These doctors don't know they're being lied to. They're suddenly seeing it. So although they may use drugs and surgery as their first line, they're suddenly seeing that maybe this is a bad idea. You have a whole bunch now that are like ripe for the picking for a chiropractor to come in and say, can I educate you about what we do? And we could be working together in our community to change the whole game. And you get these guys, that's who refers to me. My whole practice is referred to by physicians and psychiatrists and psychologists and chiropractors, right? So a lot of my patients, I don't actually have to adjust because they're already seeing somebody. They come to me for a specialized portion of what I do. So I think this is a time of absolute amazement. And if we don't, like as a community and a profession, start getting some unity and our cohesive message and our cohesive vision of where we want this to go, and don't realize this is a revolutionary moment. They're falling apart. They're ripping themselves to shreds. But there's some good guys over there, and we need to come in there and show them the light to what vitalism really looks like. We're converting them to be a chiropractor. But imagine if, 70% of Western medical doctors loved chiropractic. They knew what it was, and they were sending their patients to us. Can you imagine what that would look like?
Well, the beautiful thing is you're so articulate, and I love that about you. And you come from such a good foundational stance of your knowledge, and it's impressive to have you have the conversation with us and to talk about timely stuff, and not just talk about yourself a little bit, but also talk about how this ties into how we're recruiting vitalism within the Western medical model. Yeah. And how we are standing for the lightness that we've always been in the chiropractic model, but also that's becoming more attractive. It's actually the flame of the heart that people are actually seeing has always been there. And it's been the flame that's always burned. And
they're starving for it. They're starving. They don't care about your data or your facts or your studies. Nobody gives a crap. They want passion, they want story, they want connection, and they want authenticity. You want to have a jam-packed office? Be in integrity, okay? Have character, know your identity, and connect and be authentic and be vulnerable and stand for something.
Well, we all want healthy communities. And yeah. I think that's something that why a chiropractor, we will say this 1,000 times, is chiropractors became chiropractors because they're healers and they want to help people. Yeah. And that's why 99% of chiropractors go into the profession is because they want to give back. And I think
it's a vocation. I think if you've been doing this, the people who weren't called, they weed themselves out,
Yeah, they're not good at business. So I wasn't good at business, so I had to go do something else.
Yeah, they sell cars or whatever. That's fine. Do what you're supposed to do in life. But I think it's a vocation. I don't know anybody who didn't have. I mean, how the hell can you be adjusted repeatedly, right? And not have the divine source, connect you and go, oh, and then alignment comes in and the, universal intelligence, God source, whatever, that's what's connecting you in the all-knowing of the heart of where to go and what to do and what to say and how to be. When I'm thinking from here and I'm connected to that consciousness, that love spark frequency, that I'm such a better parent when I'm adjusted. I know when this is not. I'm like, oh man, honey, mom, your tone. Yeah, the only thing I did wrong was not marry a chiropractor, because I don't have constant access to somebody I'm really hatefully jealous of everybody who marries a chiropractor. I really am. I'm like, man, because I do the 2 a.m. morning adjustment to people. I'm like, can somebody do this for me? So the work I have to do to stay clear. But my son is the feedback to be like, I am not as nice of a person when I'm subluxated. I'm not. And so if my son can figure that out, and I love him more than anybody, imagine when I'm like the people I don't like. I'm not good. I need this to be there so then I can see them from this space. Because if you see people from your heart, there is no label, there is no division, and there is no fear. You cannot reside from here and see the world from here and have those things. You can't up here. So I need this to control this. And I got a nice big ass brain and I know it, but I need this to be in control of it. Because then I'm coming, and I don't know how to do that without being like kind of consistently under chiropractic care. I haven't figured that out yet. So I'm just not going to try. I'm just going to stay under care. And I've tried to figure out how to adjust myself as we all have, and that doesn't work.
So let me ask you a little bit about yourself personally.
Oh, okay.
When you're not out saving lives, what kind of books do you like to read? And do you listen to other podcasts?
So I am a reading lunatic a little bit. Before I became a mother, I read about 5 or 6 books a week. I can't keep up with that anymore. I'm just too tired. So I do about 1 or 2 books a week. I like paper. I think they're the sexiest thing around. I like art and books all over my house. So right now I'm in a kind of I like a lot of old school stuff. I think some chiropractors should get these books. If you guys, Science of Getting Rich. It's written like in 1910 by Waddles. I like Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. I love Og Mandino. The Greatest Salesman in the World. I probably read that book 20 times. So that's some old school stuff that I'll listen to often, just at different times. I read a Maxwell Daily Reader every day, business kind of leadership every morning. I am super into just, I'm kind of into these books that are like leadership right now. I've read about like Can't Hurt Me, David Goggins, amazing. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, Mark Manson. I've probably listened to it 20 times. It's genius. I want to marry him. I wish I would have written that book. If I had written that book, I feel like I could. I'm good. Big Magic, Elizabeth Gilbert, genius. So I like a lot of personal development, growth. I don't read any fiction or anything like that. So those are some of my favorite hits. Anatomy of an Epidemic is one of the greatest anthologies of destroying psychiatry and what it's done you'll ever read. Anatomy of Epidemics. If you're into psychiatry or you have patients, you understand, because, I tell chiropractors, I'm like, here's the thing. When I lectured at CEU, I'm like, you don't have to know any of this stuff I'm showing you, all these brain images and these drug interactions. That's what I do. But you should know enough to refer to somebody like me. Because if you send them to a psychiatrist, good luck with that. Because they're just going to drug them and run them. That's it. Sprinkle some drugs, 10 minutes later. That's not therapy and that's not healing. So I just think we should all know what each other kind of specialize in and kind of help refer. I'm super into referring, and chiropractors sometimes I think don't refer enough. Like, I'm not great at extremities. I can do a little bit, but I'm like, go see my friend. She's really good at that. She's all certified. It's not what I do, right? So that's what I do. That's the books I read. I don't listen to podcasts really. I listen to Audible. I buy books a lot.
So let's drop the mic for a second and let's not worry about you as like the mom or you as the practitioner or you as the book reader.
Okay.
What do you like to do for hobbies? What are your what's your life like outside of that realm?
Well, it's so funny because every time I watch these, I've noticed I think a lot of us lack hobbies.
We all do.
Yeah, I was like, I'm the same way. I don't really do anything. I will have to say, my son said it a few years ago. He's, Mom,
is work a hobby?
Exactly. We were at the beach on vacation, and I'm reading this neurology book, and he goes, seriously? Do you not read anything that's not about the brain? I'm like, but this is fun. He's like, Mom, that's not actual fun. That's not actually fun. Do you need help with this? I was like, oh, I probably do. So I'm working on getting hobbies because I consider reading a hobby, but I'm always reading like educational. So I'm like, maybe
that's
not.
me when you find a hobby.
Yeah, well, Harleys, I ride bike, and I started a new hobby recently. I was like, because I'm like, I need a hobby. So I shoot guns. I go to the range. So marksmanship, so Beretta, Smith & Wesson, Glock. Like I said, I'm not having your bullshit. So this whole situation has been a fascinating thing. And so I think, what Keith Khalil told me years ago in that moment of in this office and the big idea and and I was like, I'm becoming a chiropractor. And oh my God. And and he was like, hang on. So that's good. But here's the thing. You need to be clear. You need to know you're always going to be a salmon swimming against the stream. You need to understand you will be going against the tide. You will be called a quack. They're not going to respect you. So if you need the respect of being a physician, of having that white jacket, and knowing, then you need to go off to medical school and be the best damn physician you can be, Stephanie. But if you're going to be a chiropractor, you're going to come from this standpoint. You're going to be turning life force on here and bringing innate intelligence and God force into people. You need to be the best damn chiropractor, but you're going to have to let that go. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to let it go, right? I'll be the nonconformist resistor. So there's definitely challenges with being the nonconformist at times. And I'm so love and light, like Northern Yankee liberal, that we don't do guns. Like that's the drug dealers and the gun runners and it's all criminals, right? I've been in the South a long time though. And it's a different subculture. And my son is into camping and survival and all this stuff and motorcycles. So I kind of got into stuff because of him. And I'm like, ooh, this is awesome. Motorcycles rule. So I do a lot of stuff. My hobbies are kind of because of my kid. I camp. I take him to knife throwing classes. But the gun thing has been an interesting thing. It's like a living meditation. So I've been meditating 20 years and like using malas. I chant. I do a lot of Sanskrit chanting. I like that type the most. But shooting, what you have to do with your breathing, so it's hot and loud and, there's this motion of all of it and there's energy, to control your breathing and find the pause. It's almost like the moment. So if you're about to do an adjustment and my eyes are usually closed and there's a drop and that's when you go, you feel it. And that's when you better find that spot or you might hurt them. Right. So you learn from doing it thousands of times to connect that innate, and you feel it. You connect with that person, and that's the spot. Wow, there it is. Whether it's a person or a horse. I used to adjust to horses back in the day. You have to really know that in a horse. So the gun is kind of the same way. So I kind of started hating it. And I'm like, it's hot, it's loud, I don't like it. You got to clean it after and all this stuff. And then I've dropped into the skill set of it and controlling my breathing. If I can stay in my parasympathetic breathing and controlled and so stable that I keep hitting that aim during that time, I can maintain control in other situations as well. Not to mention, I believe in preparation. I don't know what's coming and I want to be all love and light, but just like Archangel Michael, I wield a big ass heavy stick. So I'm going to come at you with love and light, but I got a Michael statue in my bedroom. He killed the devil. That Michael isn't soft and gentle. He is a warrior and he will hurt you if you are of the dark. I feel the same way at this point, and I'm trying to get bigger and better and stronger. I'm not a former military. I'm not a law enforcement, but I have law enforcement training me because I want to generate a frequency around me of I welcome you and you will know my boundary and where it is and whether you think you can control me or not. And I think that's important for as many chiropractors to start getting on board as well. This is a time to find your strength and find your character and stand up for what you believe in and tell your story louder than you've ever told it. You should have the biggest freaking month in practice this month. Right? That's how I look at it. Not slow it down, build it up. So I shoot guns and ride bikes.
That's a cool hobby. So you do.
I really said, I need hobbies. I don't really want to do golf. I'm like golf, some of these things are like, and I'm not super strong. I'm like, I really can't pick up rock climbing and I really don't want to jump out of a plane. I'm like, you know what? I can go do that. But right now, let me tell you, I'm mad because I can't. because I just quit a membership and I couldn't go today and I wanted to go to one tomorrow. They're requiring a mask. And so we walked in a couple weeks ago and literally walked out, said, cancel our membership. I said, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. So I'm in a tough place where I'm like, how do I get to do what I want to do with this tyranny that I'm living under right now? But if it means I can't do my hobby temporarily, so be it. They will not get my money. I will not consent.
Outside shooting range.
I can't find one.
We have one here in Colorado.
Yeah, they're really hard. And I think if I have to go on a 2-hour drive, I might have to just maybe I went horseback riding recently. So I'm trying to find things like, what can I do and that I don't have to see people with their shame muzzles on, right?
Well, we're coming up on the end of our interview here, but before we all part ways, what are some websites that people can go to if they want to learn more about you or what you're doing, or if they want to contact you?
Sure. My practice name for a long time is brainandbodysolutions.com. That's kind of my main site. That'll take you to my e-learning center, which is brainandbodyrevolution.org. But it's on there, the courses and the retreats, everything is there. My Instagram. I've been kicked off of Twitter. Isn't that awesome? I have been banned. But Instagram and Facebook are there. I'm at Dr. Rimka, or Dr. Rimka's Brain and Body Solutions. But we're working on getting me a new Twitter handle to see if I cannot be censored again. And I'm on YouTube, Dr. Rimka. So I usually go by Dr. Rimka. But brainandbodysolutions.com will get you there. And if anybody, any docs want to reach out and learn about what I'm doing, I'm happy to talk with you, or any of my courses, or how to leverage. I want doctors to start having more fun and more flow in their practice, and not be so, if you start having more fun, go back to what it felt like in the beginning, you will start attract. I think it's the best marketing out there, is to really create the energy, the impression of increase, it's called. Everybody wants more. They want more of something. What the hell more do you sell them? Some of you it's health. Some of you it's hope. Some of you it's, you got to figure out what that is. And like, oh, right. If you're always giving off the impression of increase everywhere you go and everything you say, every post you post, they'll just start coming to you and you won't even be able to keep them away. You don't need to search for them like crazy. So it's all about energy and creating that increase of, and so get clear on that. Anyway, so that's I still just want chiropractic. Like I don't want anybody to be scared anymore. I really want you to have faith and confidence in this amazing profession, and your skill set, and what you do is essential. You have to be banging that. People are spending money right now like crazy if they think it's essential. You need to teach them chiropractic is essential. That's it. They think Netflix is essential. They think their TV is essential. They think beer is essential. They think wine is essential. They think weed is essential. What are we doing that we haven't told people that we are essential?
Amen.
So, praise.
Well, thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you.
Really nice to connect with you. I know that our innate is connected to your innate, and it's really amazing for you to be able to be a vessel of knowledge and to be able to expand upon your path that will shine light to others. And I think that people that will watch this and listen to this, they're going to walk away feeling that they're more powerful and they have more ability to develop greater skill sets to reach their communities, and maybe they can reach themselves too. So
I hope so. If I did that at all, that would be a great gift and honor. So I appreciate it. Thank you guys for doing this and keeping us in community in such a way, that you were able to rise up and help the field that, we're incredible and yet we struggle as well. You know what I mean? So I deeply appreciate it.
Well, we're on two sides of this boat, and we're both oaring. We have an oar, and we just need the chiropractors to keep on doing what they do. And we'll do our best to keep free speech alive and well in this beautiful profession of chiropractic.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for being our guest today, and we want you to enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.